Hi Jacques, hi Roxanne. First of all, I'd like to thank you on behalf of all Russian-speaking people who interested in Venus project. Not only for helping us to understand how our society arranged nowadays, not only that you inspire all of us, but for many years of your work under the creation the new world where each person has place to be. Jacques, during your speech in St. Petersburg, you told that all of we were talking about people understand within the frameworks of their education and cultural background. According to this fact, it's rather difficult to open the eyes of the person who been taking a lot of propagandistic tools for all his life. How do you think if the well-prepared trainings could help people, if these trainings based on the doing exercises, during which the person understood by himself that our society can be kind, friendly and loving?
They have to be taught. They can't understand anything by themselves. When you want to become an airline pilot, you go to an airline school. When you want to become a doctor, you go to a medical school. But you don't understand by yourself. You understand by instruction and information. People instruct other people in information they don't have. For example, when I was a kid, I built a model airplane that went into the ground, it crashed. And an older boy came up to me and said, "Your wings are too far back." And I said, "How did you know that?" "Because I made the same mistake you made." It's not really a mistake. It was, I didn't know. And he taught me. Now, he could have said, "My plane is better than yours." That doesn't teach me anything. So they learn to speak in the future to inform other people, not to win, not to be smarter than the other person. They say, if you move your wing forward, it won't do that. I say, how do you know? Because I made the same error you made. I didn't know. And so he taught me what to do. In other words, if people land on an island, and there's no water, no fish, and no trees, no fruit, nothing to eat, if they're shipwrecked on the island. And then you tell, "My God, there's no water, no fish. What can we do about it?" "I don't know." "Then shut up." If you have something you can recommend, make a net to catch fish, or use eyeglasses to start a fire. You know, the eyeglasses can start a fire.
Yeah.
But they don't know that. People who wear eyeglasses didn't know that if they were on an island, they can start a fire with eyeglasses. And if you start a fire, that means you can cook or stay warm. But if you just say, things are terrible, we have nothing to eat, no food, what do you recommend? Nothing. Then shut up, because you have nothing to say. If people don't seem to understand, you say they don't understand, what do you recommend to enable them to understand? "I don't know." Then shut up. Don't talk about things you can't change. If you tell me there are meteors falling on the earth and it's destroying everything, what do you recommend? "I don't know." If you don't ask them, what do you recommend? If he says, "I don't like the Venus Project, what do you want to change in it?" "I don't know." Then I can't deal with that. If they say your roads are too narrow, you don't have enough height in the building, I can change that. But if they just say it'll never work, what's the matter with it? "I don't know." I can't. That's an ego problem. I can't deal with that.
All the ego is made by the culture.
Yes.
Yes, so...
If the culture has something to suggest, they can improve it. If they say the government's terrible, what can we do to fix it? "I don't know."
Usually, like in the future, kids won't be playing games like with balls or things that they don't really learn from. They may be learning what areas have certain diseases, and then they'd be learning what are the factors in that area. Are there certain industry or things like that? Where does the water come from? And they would play those kind of games so they'd walk away wiser, and so they could deal with problems.
We would have more knowledge if they ask questions. What brings the disease? If a new disease is killing people, where does it come from? And they have to ask the right questions. And the only way you do that is by studying more science. Science tells you how to ask questions.
Jacques, Roxanne, you've been to Russia. You spoke to a lot of people in there. How do you think? Which features of Russian culture can help to realize the Venice Project?
We've traveled all over the world, and we didn't find that there's any one particular country that has an advantage of understanding this than others. Although, you know, in some countries where there's more depression and more people out of work, there's more people ready to look for an alternative. Mm-hmm. Like in Athens, in Greece, people were working very hard for the Venus Project because they've already suffered a lot, and they find that there's a need for another alternative.
If the Russians understand the Venus Project, they know what to do. If they don't, they don't. So we have to make it explicitly clear with photographs showing today's cities jammed, no planning, this planned. We have to show factories and how vehicles pick up the finished product, but the factories concentrated in a given area with exit and entrance so that the trains bring material to the factory and that they don't leave empty. After they bring the material, they take the finished product from the factory, put it on the train, so it never travels empty. With a common direction to take care of nature, not cut down the forest, don't dump poisons into the lakes or rivers. All the nations have to agree. And those nations that join with us will work on that. Those nations that don't want to join with us will go their own way. But I think eventually the people of different nations will see the advantage of everybody living in a co-op system rather than individual nations. And that's the only way you can get them. You can't twist their wrist or torture them or force them with military methods. You have to educate them to show them the advantage of organized agriculture. Instead of growing all these different kinds, all the same plants, cabbages, corn, you have a mixture which will enhance the other plants. In other words, sometimes a monoculture is not good. Sometimes you need various plants. So in our farming system, the runoff from the top plants serves the benefit of the next layer of plants. And the runoff from that serves the next layer. Do you understand what I mean? Not just a bunch of layers. Well, first of all, they have to understand what science is. Otherwise you can't get to them. If they understand what science is, they understand that they can't participate in anything unless they study the subject. Like if a person says, it's too bad so many people are sick, we still say, what do you recommend? Nothing. Then they have nothing to say. We don't want people to talk that don't know anything about the Venus Project. If they say, what is the Venus Project? It's the joining together of all nations and sharing the Earth's resources with everyone. Now, would everyone want the same thing? No. Geologists would want to study and have cameras for photographing Earth sciences. Atmospheric people that study meteorology would like to know the weather and the forces that shape the weather. They don't engage in any kind of conversation. Normal people do. They say, if only we can control the weather. We can't. So you don't talk about, how do you do that? I don't know. They don't talk about it. The kids of the future will say, I don't know to a lot of questions. I don't know. I have to study it more. Then I'll let you know. Do you understand that? So there's no conversation going on all day long. When you go out to lunch and you talk to people, most people don't remember what you talked about because it was nothing in particular. But when doctors talk to each other about medical problems, they remember. Because they say, well, how do you treat this disorder? They show them films, or they show them the method they do surgery. But if you don't show them specific systems, they think they know what you mean, but not necessarily. So we have to become very different in our manner of speaking. Children talk to each other, but they don't really talk to each other. They talk at each other. Can you say what that means? At each other. They don't communicate. Person says, I love my job. What is your job? I make lenses for microscopes. What do you like about it? Would you rather do anything else? No. That means they've been only indoctrinated in lenses. You can't talk to them about other fields. You can only talk to them about making lenses, which is one way. But if you can talk to them across the gap of society, that's why we don't make specialists in the future. The Venus Project, we train people in chemistry, physics, mathematics, art, many different fields, so they understand many things, not just their own field. Do you understand? Yes. That's the trouble with the world today. There are too many specialists who specialize in one area. And that's good for business, but not good for knowledge.
Despite the monetary system becomes obsolete, the capitalism isn't effective anymore, and ecological problems are so obvious that we can't ignore them. Concept management is still strong and controls the worldview during manipulation, falsification of the history, ideological lie, genetic weapon. So how can we resist all of these facts and realize the Venus Project?
If you go to another planet, the first thing you have to say is, what have we here? The answer is, I don't know. Then you find out. Then you go to work, say how much drinking water there is, how much heat there is in the earth you can tap for energy, and what the gravity is. If it's 10 times that of the earth, the bridge designs have to be different. The mathematics in making a bridge that's 10 times the gravity of the earth has to have thicker beams. You can't use earth science on another planet. And the Venus Project is another way of thinking. And people have to say, what is the Venus Project? And they have to understand it as the Venus Project, not as what they think it is. They think it's a bunch of technicians telling everybody what to do. It isn't. Technicians in the Venus Project are assigned given tasks to make grass that doesn't grow any more than 1.25 inches. So you don't need lawnmowers. You understand? They ask, what is the problem? People say, oh, I don't get along with my children. Well, that's a big project. You can't teach them how to get along with the children, but you can teach them how humans react under different circumstances. That's how you get along. But if you don't study human beings and human behavior, called behavioral science, you can't deal with people. If you tell people, be kind, be good, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. But if you're trained in a culture that says, make all the money you can, profit is what keeps business going. So you only think in terms of profit, but you'll dump your toxic materials into the environment because your motive is profit, nothing else. And if you're going to take care of all the garbage, recycle it and all that, that interferes with your profit. So if you're brought up to think in terms of profit, that whole thing, you can't. The wonderful thing about a computer is you can delete what you don't use. But the human brain can't delete it. If you're brought up to be a racist, that you hate certain people, the Germans or the Greeks or the Filipinos, that is irrelevant to the Venus Project proposals. We don't have those problems.
You know, every culture and every society raises their children to serve the needs and to perpetuate that culture. So if you grow up within the monetary system, as everyone in the world seems to be growing up that way today, then you have to learn competition. You have to learn how to beat the other person to get ahead. You learn concepts of individuality and everything that's really contrary to what we're teaching people within the resource-based economy. Because the resource-based economy is based on cooperation and learning how we relate to one another and how we acquire our behavior and what kind of behavior would enable us to build a sustainable world for everyone. It's not just based on wealth, property, and power as our goals are today, but it's based on the well-being of people and the preservation of the environment and how to make people constructive and cooperative and how to excel as society so everyone benefits.
When man invented the electric light, he had to explain to others what it is, how it works. If he didn't explain it, you'd still have gas lights all over. And when you come up with something new, if you come up with a form of mathematics that enables you to understand things, you have to teach other people that kind of mathematics so they can understand. When Einstein talked of relativity, he said all things are relative, and that doesn't mean anything. What does mean something is a bug sees this surface as rough. We see the surface as smooth. Our receptors are different than that of an insect. So if you try to say, I wonder if insects have feelings, you don't say, how do you check that out? Do insects react? Do they weep? Do they feel bad? Do they get a nervous breakdown? No, they don't. The brain is simple. You have to study insects' brains. They may have 10,000 neurons. We may have 16 million. Do you know what I mean? So we can sense different things. But we do not sense the truth. We just sense things that our instruments can pick up. If I talk to the Russian people about memory metal and do not show them the memory metal, how it works, it wouldn't stick. But if they see it, they're amazed. They change. But if they don't see it, they just hear words, they say, maybe, maybe not. When I talk of fiber optics bringing the image to the other end, I show them what I'm talking about. When I talk of magnetic repulsion, most people don't feel that. They don't even know it exists. But when they see it, they know what I'm talking about. They know the same thing that I feel when they do it. Do you understand? But if I just talk about memory metal, it doesn't come true. It doesn't work the way I want it to. So we have to make lots of visuals. Show the memory metal on TV. Show the Russian people things that they never knew existed.
But now the memory metal, is that using now by the government or some corporations?
Yes, it's being used in medicine. Mm-hmm. It opens the blood vessels, the memory metal. Mm-hmm. And the satellite has photoelectric cells. When they launch it, it's closed. But when the photoelectric cells are out in the sun, the sunlight opens the photoelectric cells to face the sun. So that's how it's used. Photoelectric cells, generate electricity in space stations. The memory metals are used there. The memory metals are used in any system where it's retracted and the memory metals go to work under certain conditions. They open up a certain
It's
way.
used with hothouses growing plants at a certain temperature. It might open a vent. It's also used in eyeglasses where the frames pop back sometimes.
In this system, we don't know what people will do. If you make you wouldn't make a machine gun, but if a person makes a machine gun, the military would love to have that machine gun. Then the military would like a machine gun that's more efficient, meaning with a laser beam on it. If the laser beam is on you and you pull the trigger, the bullets come out. But no bullets come out if it's off you. That saves a lot of munition, a lot of cost. So the free enterprise system will use that the wrong way. When I say the wrong way, a way that doesn't benefit everybody. If we go to another country and bomb the hell out of it, we level it. But it's good for contractors to rebuild. They love that. So if you say, bring peace to the world, the munition workers would suffer. The companies that make guns would suffer economic deprivation. So you can't do anything good in the money world where profit motivates people only.
Unfortunately, too, most of the appropriations are given to the military to design new things. Usually comes through the military, then to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's true with the space industry as well. We don't feel it's a proper time to go out into space. We feel it should be done when all the nations come together, solve the problems that we have on Earth, or begin to solve them as one world, and then go out into space. Because then you could go out as a joint venture. We feel if you go out as individual countries, you're going to have nuclear weapons going around the Earth if they don't already. Because the military was always involved in going into outer space every time they went. So, getting back to your question about giving people different ideas within the monetary system, it's very difficult for us. You know, a lot of times people ask us, well, what would your designs look like for your solar systems or your transportation units? And that's a free enterprise system question. We don't give out the details of that because people can abuse it, or they take patents on it, and then we can't use it when we're ready to build.
Mm-hmm.
So we just present the general concept, but not the details.
How do you think about activism in Russia? And what do you suggest for the activists to do? And like maybe you got some guidelines to lay out about that.
Read the book.
Yeah.
Read the book twice, so you have some knowledge about it. Although people talk about there are other factors other than environment, they are relatively rare and they are insignificant. Environment is the major effector of human values. If they're worried about the genes, those that are worried about it, a gene does not make an inventor. An inventor is a person with experience in many different areas of technology. Now, genetically, all that the genes do will make your eyesight better, or your nose more efficient, or the shape of your nose is a heredity. But the shape of the body is heredity. But values such as I prize a good automobile, that's learned by the culture. Most human behavior is based on the cultural practices, 90%. And the other things don't count. They're insignificant. If I were to say in school that America is just as good as any other country, no better, no worse, I couldn't get an army to defend it. So I have to say America is the greatest country and check those kids out. And if the kids talk about France being great, I put the FBI on those kids because they're teaching them subversive things. I can't afford to have my country go off in all different directions. I can't control them if I do that. If I educate people to say that everybody can learn anything, they say, then this country is not unique. We stole it from the Indians. Should we give it back? No, you can declare the whole earth as the public property. And the Venus Project is another way of thinking. And people have to say, what is the Venus Project? And they have to understand it as the Venus Project, not as what they think it is.